Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
There are ancient books hidden in the shadows of history, books written long before the world drew clear lines between faith, myth, and revelation. Among these writings, one stands out not just as a relic of the past, but as a prophecy that continues to spark fascination, fear, and debate. That book is the Book of Enoch. Forgotten by the Western world, preserved only in Ethiopia for more than 1,000 years, and rediscovered in the modern era, it contains visions so vast, so cosmic, and so haunting that even today scholars call it one of the strangest and most powerful texts ever written. And within its pages lies a series of signs, secret signs, that claim to reveal the approach of the end of the age. To understand how the Book of Enoch became the guardian of these lost prophecies, one must travel back to a world before the flood, before the patriarchs, before the nations of the earth were divided. Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, is described in the earliest layers of Scripture as a man who walked with God until he was taken alive into the heavens. While the Bible speaks of his disappearance in only a single verse, ancient Jewish tradition elaborates far beyond this, claiming that Enoch was taken into divine realms not simply as a reward for righteousness, but to be taught the mysteries of heaven, the structure of creation, the fate of angels, and the destiny of mankind. These teachings, according to Ethiopian tradition, were written down in multiple sections, including the Book of the Watchers, the Book of Parables, the Astronomical Book, and the Book of Dreams. Over time, these texts disappeared from the Western world, suppressed, forgotten, and considered too strange to fit comfortably into the canon. Yet Ethiopia preserved them, translating them into Guizi and protecting them within monasteries high in the mountains. When European scholars rediscovered the Book of Enoch in the 18th century, they were shocked. Here was a book quoted by the earliest Christians, revered by Jewish mystics, and influential in shaping ideas found in the New Testament, including the words of Jesus himself. But the most startling sections were those that described the end of days in vivid, symbolic, and cosmic detail. These passages were unlike any found in the Bible. They spoke not only of moral decay or political turmoil, but of changes in the natural world, shifts in the heavens, transformations in human behavior, and movements among the angels themselves. For Enoch, the end times were not merely a distant event, but part of a grand pattern built into the fabric of creation. The Book of Enoch begins with a vision of a future generation that would live in an age of great confusion. Humanity would stray from the order established by God, losing the ancient wisdom that once guided the world. People will become lovers of themselves, seekers of pleasure, and blind to the spiritual realm surrounding them. This theme echoes throughout Ethiopian interpretations of the text, emphasizing not simply moral decline but a loss of spiritual sight. In the final days, according to Enoch, humans would see only the physical world, forgetting that heaven watches constantly through the eyes of angels. The secret signs of the end begin with disturbances in the natural order. Enoch describes stars leaving their appointed places, heavenly bodies changing their paths, and signs appearing in the sky. In the ancient world, the movement of stars was seen not as a random pattern, but as a divine calendar. To say that stars wandered or behaved unpredictably meant that the created order itself was shifting. Ethiopian monks viewing these passages have often interpreted them metaphorically, suggesting not literal stars, but the rise of false teachers, corrupted leaders, and spiritual powers acting outside the roles assigned to them by God. Another sign described by Enoch is the breakdown of the seasons. Times of sowing and harvest would no longer align as they once did. Heat and cold would come unpredictably. Rain would fall in the wrong seasons or not at all. The earth itself would feel out of balance. These descriptions have drawn attention in the modern era because of environmental changes that match such patterns. Yet in the context of Ethiopian tradition, this imbalance was always understood to reflect spiritual disorder. When humanity fell into arrogance and forgot the laws of God, creation responded in turmoil. Enoch continues by describing a world dominated by knowledge yet devoid of wisdom. People would understand the workings of the earth but forget their souls. They would build great cities, create powerful tools, and master the forces of nature, but the more they advanced, the further they would drift from truth. Knowledge would increase, but the deeper questions of existence would be ignored. Ethiopian scholars often connect this to the ancient belief that the Watchers, the angels who fell in Enoch's story, corrupted humanity by teaching forbidden arts. In the last days, similar knowledge would rise again, leading to both great achievements and great destruction. But among all the signs, one stands out as the heart of Enoch's prophecy: the return of the Watchers and the struggle between heavenly and fallen angels. In the Book of Enoch, the Watchers descend to earth in ancient times, taking wives from among humans and producing the giants known as Nephilim. Their corruption leads to violence, chaos, and the collapse of moral order. God punishes them, casting them into prisons beneath the earth. But Enoch is told that in the final age their influence will reemerge, not through physical giants, but through ideas, institutions, and powers that mimic the arrogance of the ancient Watchers. This concept appears nowhere else in Judeo-Christian scripture, and it gives Enoch's prophecy a unique view of the end times. Instead of focusing solely on human actions, Enoch frames the final age as a spiritual conflict where angelic beings play critical roles behind the scenes. Ethiopia's early church understood this deeply. For centuries, it emphasized the connection between spiritual beings and human history, preserving traditions about angels that had vanished from other parts of the world. In this context, the reappearance of the Watchers is not a literal event, but a symbolic return of the same forces that once led humanity astray, forces of pride, deception, violence, and rebellion against divine order. Another powerful sign Enoch describes is the rise of leaders who exalt themselves like gods. These rulers would gain power through deceit, control multitudes, and reshape nations according to their desires. Enoch warns that such rulers would appear righteous outwardly, but would twist justice for their own gain. Ethiopia's interpretation often connects these figures to prophetic warnings about kings and empires that would rise in the final age, challenging the sovereignty of God. Enoch also speaks of a time when truth will vanish from the earth. Words will be manipulated, justice will be sold, and lies will be accepted as wisdom. This intellectual darkness, Enoch suggests, is more dangerous than war or famine because it blinds people to the reality of spiritual forces acting in the world. When deception becomes normal, humanity loses its ability to distinguish light from darkness. Yet with every warning, Enoch gives a sign of hope. He speaks of a remnant, a faithful group scattered across the nations who would hold on to the ancient truths. These individuals would understand the signs of the times not through human logic, but through spiritual perception. Ethiopian monks have long claimed that this remnant reflects those who walk according to divine wisdom, regardless of the age they live in. Their role is not merely survival, but preparation for the arrival of the Son of Man, a term Enoch uses centuries before it appears in the New Testament. One of the most remarkable passages in Enoch describes a final judgment conducted not by God alone, but by the Son of Man, a divine figure who sits on a throne of glory. This idea was centuries older than Christianity, yet it aligns with the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament. Scholars have been astonished by this connection, suggesting that early Christians were deeply influenced by Enoch's vision of the end times. Ethiopian tradition, however, has always viewed Enoch not as an outsider to biblical history, but as one of its earliest prophets, whose writings illuminate truths later revealed in Scripture. Enoch describes the end as a time when the righteous will shine like lights, and the wicked will face consequences not only for their actions but for the influence they spread across generations. The earth itself will be renewed, purified from corruption, and restored to the harmony it possessed before the fall. This renewal is not simply destruction but transformation, a theme that resonates deeply within Ethiopian Christianity, which emphasizes the restoration of creation rather than its destruction. Throughout the Book of Enoch, there is an emphasis on heavenly books, records kept by angels, documenting human actions, thoughts, and intentions. In the final judgment, these books are opened, revealing the truth about every soul. The idea of heavenly record-keeping appears again in the Book of Revelation, but it originates in Enoch. Ethiopian tradition holds that the angels who record human deeds have never ceased their work, reinforcing the belief that nothing in life goes unnoticed. As the end approaches, Enoch says that heaven and earth will draw closer. Visions, dreams, and revelations will increase. People will sense the presence of the spiritual world more clearly, though many will reject it. In Ethiopian mysticism, the veil between realms is believed to thin during significant spiritual ages, allowing glimpses of the invisible world. Signs and wonders, both divine and deceptive, will appear, requiring discernment among believers. The Book of Enoch concludes with a promise that after the trials of the final age, the Ancient of Days will establish an everlasting kingdom. The righteous will inherit the earth renewed, and the fallen angels will face their final punishment. For Ethiopia, this vision aligns with centuries of eschatological tradition emphasizing divine justice, the triumph of righteousness, and the restoration of creation. In the end, the secret signs of the end times found in the Book of Enoch offer more than predictions. They provide a map of spiritual history, connecting ancient events with future destinies. They describe a world that loses its spiritual foundation, struggles through ages of confusion, confronts powers greater than itself, and ultimately returns to divine order through the intervention of God and the Son of Man. Whether read as prophecy, allegory, or ancient wisdom, the Book of Enoch remains one of humanity's most extraordinary attempts to understand its place in the universe. Ethiopia preserved it not as a curiosity, but as a living witness to the mysteries of heaven, the nature of angels, and the destiny of the world. The secret signs hidden within its pages continue to echo across the centuries, inviting each generation to reflect on its own time, its own struggles, and its own understanding of the end of days.